I'm returning to Palestine and the genocide that's going on there. And we all this morning listened to the report of the Palestinian ambassador to the UN on RT this morning, a report of what he said at the UN. Flames and hunger are devouring Palestinian children. We also listened to an eyewitness account of a doctor on the ground. That's today, tomorrow again, yesterday. And I ask myself before, I'll just give a few figures, and then I'm asking the question, how have we gotten to this point? How have we let this happen? 54,000 Palestinians, including 15,613 children dead. The Lancet, of course, places the figure much higher for deaths and injured. More than 630,000 people have been displaced. At least 28 aid workers killed since the 1st of May. An average of 1 worker a day. Since October the 7th, 2023, 452 workers. And you know what Israel does today? It announces that it intends to establish 22 new settlements. And so I ask myself, and I put myself into the question, how have we allowed this happen? And we've let it happen because we've bought into a narrative that has been pushed for over 100 years, I'd say 140 at this time, that Jewish people were a people without a land, and Palestine was a country without a people. And arising from that, then, the narrative took hold that they were entitled to that land, notwithstanding the Nakba in 1948, a new Nakba, and I come back to this book, happening under our very eyes and noses, with the narrative that Israel is the only democracy. It is the bulwark against the Islamic religion and against Muslims. And we have all bought into that to a certain extent. And when the Hamas attack happened on the 7th of October, which we are on record for condemning, I'm also said history did not start on that day. On the 6th of October, and I haven't much time, but I'll read out some of the bullet points. Israel controlled most of the Palestine in complete defiance of international law, the 6th of October. The people were kept under a blockade, electricity for less than a few hours a day. It was continuing the blocking of most of Gaza's population. Israel at that point had built up an extensive infrastructure in the West Bank exclusively for Jews against international law. In 2023, on the 6th of October, Israel had already killed 250 Palestinians by October, including almost 50 children, in the most aggressive settler push across the West Bank for almost 2 decades, and so on. I'm quoting from a new book about to be published tonight by Fintan Drury. I invite you all to go along to Hodges and Figgis. A more comprehensive, fair analysis of what has happened I can't find, except for the 100 Years History book as well. Nakba too. And so I'm here today saying, Taoiseach, it is time for us to reflect, to stop the cognitive dissonance where we praise ourselves for taking the best action in relation to Palestine, and ask how an independent sovereign state, a republic, is standing over a narrative that is utterly false in relation to Israel. Garmagod, for your forbearance.
Taoiseach.
Well, thanks very much, Deputy Connolly. So, I mean, we're not standing over any false narrative. We're reiterating long-standing foreign policy, and I think the long-standing policy of the people of Ireland, that there needs to be a two-state solution in the Middle East, that the State of Israel has every right to exist in peace and security, and the people of Palestine have every right to have a sovereign state that exists in peace and security as well. And as we know in this country, better than many, the only way to get to that point is through political dialogue, and not through the genocidal activity that we're seeing from the Netanyahu government. I would make this point, and I'm not suggesting you didn't, but I would just make this point, that I always like to differentiate between the government of Israel and the people of Israel, because I believe there's many people in Israel who would be utterly horrified at the decisions being taken by the Netanyahu government, which are genocidal, which are war crimes, which are starving children, and which is in breach of international law. Nobody in this House comes in and seeks to praise what Ireland is doing, but what we do seek to do in this House is outline that as a small country in the European Union, we are doing everything we can to maximise the pressure on the international community to help bring about a ceasefire. And I'd suggest all political parties need to use their own political networks and links in European countries, in the United States and everywhere else, to try and help amplify that as well. Because what we are seeing happening today, and what we have been seeing happening now for a very significant period of time, is despicable and is an act of evil. This is evil at work here. There's just no way about that. This is evil. And why I say it's evil is this: the people of this great country have, through their own taxes, paid for a very significant amount of aid to get into Gaza. Enough food on trucks paid for by the Irish people to feed at least 6,000 people in Palestine. And for 4 months, those trucks have been parked in Jordan. And there's only one reason, no other reason, as to why those trucks can't get in, and that's the Israeli blockade. And while we want to see an immediate end to the conflict, of course we do, we want to see a ceasefire, we want to see the release of all the hostages. In the here and now, today, the people in Gaza who are starving could be fed. And it is a political choice of the Israeli government that is also a war crime not to allow that aid in. So in Ireland, we'll continue to do everything we can, and we'll continue to work constructively with opposition. I thought there was a very good motion put down by the Labour Party that we didn't just not oppose, that I'll proactively work with you to advance. I've had very good engagement in the Seanad this morning with Senator Francis Black in relation to the occupied Palestinian territories, and we are now the first country in Europe. And I say that in the hope that other countries now need to look to Ireland and say, well, hang on, if this little country on the periphery of Europe can pass a piece of legislation to ban trade with the occupied Palestinian territory, why can't we do it in other countries as well? And I call today, and I hope everybody in this House calls today, for other countries to replicate what we're doing. And on the issue of services, before I'm misrepresented again, as I constantly seem to be, no difficulty in relation to services being included if we can find a legal way forward in relation to that. There isn't a policy difference. So we have a lot of work to do in relation to this, and I don't ever buy into the narrative, opposition good, government bad. We're all appalled, we're all sickened at the genocide we're witnessing.
You may all well be appalled and sickened, but you're refusing to face the elephant in the roof. Israel has an umbilical cord attachment to America. They are the biggest supplier of arms to America. America is the biggest supplier of arms, followed by the EU. And you're waiting for a morally corrupt and inept EU to take action. They're the second biggest supplier of arms to the genocide. Let's call a spade a spade. We have no difficulty, and you've had no difficulty criticising Russia. The same condemnation has not been used in relation to Israel, identifying it as the aggressor that's perpetuating genocide. Your facial expressions don't help tarnish that in that manner. This is far too serious.
I've just said that.
Well, you can stand
Israel
up, you can say
genocide.
a lot of things, and then you watch Shannon being used, an occupied territories bill that is going nowhere at the moment. Trade with Europe. We are a small country. It's time that we led, given our history. It's time we called for an absolute ceasefire, led in the UN, and make our words mean something and call out the narrative for what it is. And the narrative is Israel is a rogue state. It is not a democratic state. It is absolutely going. That narrative has allowed a congressman come here just 2 months ago into this room who has said, go in and beat the SHIT out of Palestine. A congressman feted by one of your colleagues and by another colleague in Fianna Fáil. How dare you shake your head? You stand up.
You have to conclude,
Stand up and account for what we're going to do when you say there are war crimes and a genocide.
Yeah, thanks. I hope I'll get an extra 38 seconds as well, because there was a greatest load of palaver being levelled at me there. So you have such vitriolic dislike for Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil that you cannot ever actually come above and rise to the moment. We are the first government in the European Union to say what Israel is doing is genocide. Do you hear that, Deputy? It is genocide.
What are you going to do about it?
And we're going to pass the occupied Palestinian territory.
Good.
Okay, we're going to pass that. We're going to pass it. We're going to pass it as quickly as possible. It's going to go to the Foreign Affairs Committee in the month of June. While you're standing here just throwing brickbats at me, we're working to support the people of Palestine. And the only chamber I ever go into in the entire world where people don't acknowledge that Ireland, the government, the people of Ireland are standing with the people of Palestine, standing up for human rights, standing up for international law, is here when you get up and distort with your ideology the actions of this government. I'm proud of the people of this country. I'm proud that we went into an election and it didn't matter what party you were in. You stood up and said, we are going to support the people of Palestine. Get beyond yourself with this narrative of you have all the moral authority and we're terrible people. I'm disgusted and sickened watching children dying on our television screens. And every day I come to work and work with all people in here to do our best to show leadership at a time of horrific conflict.
call on Deputy Michael.
There you go. You're at it again. Hold your sign up.
Please, sorry. Deputy Michael Fitzmaurice.
Clock is going.
No, we'll stop the clock.
Because you originate from there.
Deputy Michael Fitzmaurice.
Gurmag.